baby, dream. Oh, baby, gotta keep them dreams burning. Keep them dreams burning forever. Oh, dream, baby, dream. Dream, baby, dream.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another Empathy Co. live session. Today's product and innovation discussion will center around the question, is AI explainability possible? Or is it a black box? Some companies out there are saying that true AI cannot be explained. So today we'll be hearing from our founder and CEO, Angel Maldonado, about the importance of AI explainability, and then we'll hear about what explainability means for different stakeholders from different perspectives. So we'll be joined by Maria Osorio, who's our head of legal, who will give us insight on the data protection officer perspective. She'll then be followed by Lucia Blanco, our play and data product manager, who will represent the merchandiser perspective and what explainability can offer for brands. And then we will hear from data scientist Enrique Carnero, and he'll take us through the technical aspects of explainability from an engineering point of view. Finally, last but not least, we will hear from Borja Santaolalla, our Chief Experience Officer, on the importance of explainability for customers, for the end users, for shoppers. So, are you ready to hear how it's all connected? Let's get started. Take it away, Angel.
Thank you, Jordan, and thank you everybody who is attending this session. I think it's the most important session I have ever attended so far, because the question, AI explainability, can AI be explained? It is such a vital question right now. And to introduce this topic today, I'm just going to touch on 4 ideas very quickly. The first one is, why is it an important question? Well, if AI cannot be explained, then AI cannot be accountable, right? Because if it's not traceable and referenceable, then it cannot be accountable. So this is why AI explainability is so important, because if AI cannot be made accountable, then it cannot be guaranteed to be lawful. And if AI cannot be lawful, then is it ethical? This is why this is a very important question. You know, what are we doing then if we are creating an AI that we cannot ensure that is ethical? So this is why the question of AI explainability is so important, regardless of how difficult it is. Okay. The second topic, very quickly on this introduction, is that perhaps the question is not whether AI is explainable. The question is what we mean by it, by the concept of explainability. So it's not yes or no, it's what do you mean by explainability? And as with any other kind of meaning, it has, and more importantly, even today, multiple perspectives. You know, it's not whether AI can be explained, it's what it means to different people, to different stakeholders who have naturally different motivations. So AI explainability means something very different for a data privacy officer. And AI explainability has a different meaning for a merchandiser. So it does, of course, for a machine learning or a data scientist or a search engineer of whatever kind that touches on the space. And of course, and perhaps even more importantly, it has a particular meaning for the common person like myself when we are exposed to some automation that shapes what I see and whether I see it or not, right? So the question is not whether AI is explainable. The question is, what do we mean by this? And the answer to what do we mean has different perspectives, which is what we're going to cover here today. Another quick point I want to make, and this is the one before last, I promise, very quick, is, you know, AI has multiple forms, you know, all the full spectrum of advanced information processing, you know, whether it is probabilistic, mathematical, semantical, lexicological, evolutionary, whatever kind of AI, whatever kind of advanced information processing, generative language models, the whole spectrum, okay? And all that it is, in whatever its vehicle or its form, is just signals that complement each other. And when we take all those signals and we narrow them down to the specific capsule space of value that we offer within retail and e-commerce, we're talking about these signals being acted to deliver discoverability, findability, to find and discover products, to find and discover categories, and to understand the intentions of customers in that exercise. And this is now my last point, which is that, in whatever all those forms of AI, all of them have this one thing in common. This one thing in common. All depend on data sets. This is the one thing in common. And this one thing in common is also AI's Achilles heel. Because the explainability, the referenceability, the accountability, everything comes down to those data sets that you are using. Whether they come from foundational models that you can incorporate from Hugging Face or whatever pool or whatever other source, or whether they come from domain-specific interactions that are captured within a site or a domain. The data sets are what all AI of all forms have in common, whether they are synthetically generated. This is what all they have in common. And the data sets accountability and referenceability is such a key part in resolving AI explainability. And with this, I pass it on with great joy to you, Maria Osorio, to present us from a data privacy perspective, from a data privacy officer, from a legal or a lawyer perspective, what's that AI explainability has in your mind. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Angel. Okay, first, before starting with all the things that I want to share, I really want to share like a message from my whole profession, because sometimes look like lawyers, we want to stop the development and we really want to just push for a future sustainable, and we really want to make AI and to make all the future like good for all of us as consumers, right? So I'm gonna try to reply your question after this message. I'm gonna try to reply your question and what AI means for a lawyer or for a DPO. I could say that it's much more simple than it looks like, and I could say that it's a synonym of privacy, of compliance, and of transparency. And these are terms that we use in our day-to-day, and we just need to apply it to this new AI world. So it's not that complex on the concept. I'm gonna try to make it more funny to understand. So I'm gonna talk about the main problems that we are facing in these days about AI. And as you just mentioned, main problem is about data sets. Data sets are the backbone of the operations of the AI companies. So we need to really take care of that, and it can represent a big risk. Depending on the source of the data, we all know that, but I'm gonna refresh. Depending on the source, we can have these foundational models that are the one that you just can download from an open repository as Hugging Face that you were mentioning. And then we have the domain specific models that are the ones that we harvest in our own website from the interaction, for example, from our customers and in our e-commerce. So these are not a big risk for us because we can really easy trace where the data is coming from. So, for example, a big problem that is very difficult to handle right now about data sets is about be 100% sure that the data that we are using from a foundation model is not coming from minors. And this is very easy to understand because this data is harvested in open forums like Google, like Yahoo, that they really don't have any control of the age of the data owners. So it makes almost impossible for us on a first understanding or first analysis to make like a proper due diligence over this kind of data. The other topic, Angel already mentioned it, we were like thinking on the same, the black boxes. This is something that we are listening like, oh, the real AI is about black boxes and things like that. For us as lawyers or as DPOs, they do never be true. And just applying a regulation that we all know, that is GDPR, it comes from 2018, but it already applies and regulates these AI situations, and to be the explainability concept exactly comes from that. We need to be able to explain how the decision-making process of the AI has been made to be considered legal. And it's not just explaining how the process should be, how the process of decision has been. We need to make it understandable for a consumer. So this is a challenge, but AI needs to comply with that. And this is one of the main matters of AI compliance right now. I'm always talking about the same, but we need to be very careful always about the consent integrity in these databases. And we need to ensure that from the beginning of the data harvesting, we have had a valid and explicit consent from the owners of the data. So I'm not gonna talk more because I think we have like a very interesting session today. But what I want to share with you is like, this is not complex in the concept, but it's complex in the application. And probably we will have more sessions in the future to try to understand or explain how you can make a proper due diligence about all these data that we're using, data sets, how can we comply with the requirements of GDPR, and much more details about it.
Thank you so much, Maria. Very, very good, important perspective. And I think it's a very good point now to hear a merchandising angle from Lucia Blanco, as a product manager of a merchandising tool. What does it mean from a merchandiser perspective, AI explainability, and if you can tell us your particular view there.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. So here at Empathy, I feel like we cannot talk about merchants without talking about the playbook. So if you don't mind, I'm going to be sharing my screen and showing you a few things that we are doing in order to improve the explainability for merchants. So, I feel like I'm sharing the wrong screen. There we go. So this is the playbook. I like to think of it as a little companion for the merchant to make their lives easier. So here is where they can control everything that goes on in their shop. And that's what I feel explainability for merchants is giving them the control and the configurability of AI in order to change how AI affects their shop's performance. So I'm just going to be showing a few examples of things that we are working on. First, I want to show equalize. Here we are working on a new section. I'm just going to edit one of these sections. If you search for a query, for example, gym bag, we see that we have here a couple of vector-related configurable fields. So if you change the semantic suggestions, you can see that we have less results now that we have less semantic weight in the configurability of the results, and also that the different position of the product change. And then if we go to explain and search for the same query, we can see that those semantic weights are changing the equalized weighting on this product. So this is what explainability is, understanding how AI affects your shop and being able to control those things so that they are in line with your business strategy. It is very important that merchants can trust the AI. So we give them the tools in order to be able to modify what AI does. So I'm just going to show you another example of that so you can understand what I mean. For example, in the integration tools, if you look for, let's try top. I think there's one already created for top, so I'm just going to use that one. You can see that there are some of them that are created by the merchants, which are these ones that have the icon there, but there are other ones that are not. They are done by AI, but you cannot give full control to the AI because you don't know if that's going to be in line with what you want for your shop. So we always give the option to just delete those so that they don't appear in your shop. So that's what I mean when I say that they need to have control and make sure they need to trust the algorithm, make sure that the algorithm is going to work with them and not against them. So that's what merchant explainability is for me and for the playbook here at Empathy.
That's so cool. Just putting an AI line to the merchandising, the act, of building those relationships and the orchestration as opposed to the other way around. This is beautiful, exciting. So I'm from a machine learning, search engineer, data science, the whole spectrum of a person in the task and in the hand of delivering and implementing and connecting and creating and training AI. This is very important because when I started to develop, I was careless about this. Yeah, I was working in autonomy, a company that was working with neural nets and with a combination of information theory and Bayesian inference. The data sets were minimal, but I never had a preoccupation on an ethical ground of what this meant, right? And now that I am older, I'm demanding that everybody has a preoccupation. So, transparently share this contradiction. I'm interested to hear from Enrique, as a machine learning engineer, how do you see that preoccupation or not on the explainability aspect of creating and developing AI?
I think it's really important. I think that it's crucial to implement AI explainability in the design, meaning that the entire process, the entire chain has to be involved from the beginning in that effort, because otherwise you won't be able to have a product based on AI that it's explainable if it hasn't been designed, thought, and developed with that clear objective in mind. And yeah, so let me begin with similarity. Similarity in our context can be defined as the distance between two or more items based on their meaning or semantic field. So when working and subsequently comparing various models for semantic search, a major problem arises. How can similarity be measured? The main metric for measuring ranking quality is NDCG, which means normalized discounted cumulative gain. It is determined by comparing the relevance of the items retrieved from a search engine with the relevance of the results of another search engine. Usually it's the version of a search engine and the next iteration of it, right? So this way of measuring similarity, although it's the most popular one, can be misleading because depending on the context, several metrics for the very same situation can be applied, leading to a misunderstanding in the model results, right? But however, a benchmark that combines those metrics under several conditions can be a valid solution. With this approach, the Bayer benchmark and its later iterations was created. It combines different metrics with several datasets, resulting in a sort of holistic view of the behavior of the models compared in different environments. This has led Bayer to becoming the golden standard when measuring retrieval quality. Since 2021, the year Bayer was launched, the BM25 model, which is the ranking function used in Elasticsearch, offered good enough results for making it practical to rely on it for these purposes. However, BM25 is no longer a clear winner, and some semantics models like BERT, the one we use here at Empathy, or E5 have taken its place. But let's shift now to the main topic of my intervention, which is vectors explainability. When talking about AI, as you, Angel, said at the beginning, and Jordan said so, AI, it's conceived as a black box, right? It's the first thing that comes to our minds. Well, we want to open that black box, right? And make it transparent like a window so everyone can understand AI results. So one of the major procedures to increase the explainability of a semantic model is a 2D or 3D representation of the candidates generated by the semantic model. This can be achieved by the dimensional reduction of the model vectors from several hundreds for each candidate to 2 or 3 vectors, which allows, like I said, as a proper graphical representation. We have called this approach play vectors. And now I'm going to share you sorry. Okay. I'm sharing you a mock-up that Leticia made a few months ago that represents what play vectors could be. So the model used for the vectors generation, it's a BERT model, a base model fine-tuned with domain-specific data from a single store. The datasets used for the base model training comprehend different sentence pairs databases like Wiki Answers, Yahoo Answers, MS Marco, etc., which have been broadly used and tested in the industry and academic field. The fine-tuning was performed, as I said, with domain-specific data from a single store, and more specifically with pairs of query and product description and query next query. And well, finally, as we see in the mockup, play vectors will have functionalities like filtering the model candidates represented by use case. It can be, for example, the top queries of a shop or the queries that have no results. And also, you will be able to see the time evolution of a query in the system. So you'll be able to trace the behavior of a query through a certain amount of time. And that's all from my side. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. Very good indeed. I think, and we will soon after this go to questions, some very interesting questions coming in through LinkedIn and through the chat here in Zoom. Let's see the perspective of an end customer, the person that goes and is exposed to these interactions that are automated or promotions that are shaped by AI. Borja, if you can please give us that perspective.
Of course, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, I mean, AI explainability is a key principle, right, in design, in UX design. Obviously, it's geared towards providing, ensuring that people understand or trust the results. As we all know, I mean, none of us like it when we are, in a store and we see products that resemble something that we've seen before, but we don't know why they are there, or ads that chase us. So in a way, AI explainability or designers must create experiences that provide transparency and understanding of why the products we see there, why they are there, okay? So I'm gonna give you, I think, two simple examples that I hope they are, in a way, illustrative of this. So one of them, let me share my screen and show you this. So one of them is to do with vector search. Okay, so how can we provide, explanations about, where results are coming from? And the second one is around personalization. That again, if we are looking into providing results that are listening on our past behavior, how can we elevate that within the experience? So let me start with a very simple, if I look, for example, for a animal print shirt, okay, in this case, we're seeing that, hey, there's two results that actually are animal print shirts. But at the same time, rather than giving you many more things and forcing the shopper to disambiguate the results, we can go and say, okay, you have many other printed shirts, or you even have animal print dresses. Okay, and with this, we have plenty of other examples. Say I'm searching for relaxed jeans, and there's a number of products here. But again, we know that straight jeans or even stretch jeans could also be relevant for this intent. So that's to do with vectors, semantics, being able to display them in different lists. so that we are, capable of explaining, what we are seeing on screen. But let's look at something different. So if I'm searching for, say, dress, and I like, for example, this one I'm adding to the cart, which is a party dress. I'm gonna click this one as well, and this, and then say that I go and search for a bag. Okay, so as you can see here, obviously the service, the experience is prompting me that whether I want to see bags that are related to party. This is based on the inferring, the signals from my previous clicks from the add to carts. And again, we are not applying the these profiling signals directly, but we are prompting the shopper to really say, okay, are you really looking into party? Do you want to pursue this? So again, this is another simple example that actually helps shoppers to understand that, hey, this is being personalized to me. And this comes from the actions that I've just done, similar as debtors. So all in all, AI explainability is about answering those questions through design. Okay, answering the questions of what data sets are being used, what are the relationships, why are you seeing these products in here? And this really, it works very well in terms of building trust with your customers, of course.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is very interesting, Borja, that point. I remember, it reminded me when I was seeing this, the Netflix pattern, we used to call it, you're seeing this because you've done that, right? I'd like to start with a question that we have from in LinkedIn, from Justo Hidalgo. It's such a brilliant question. On one hand, he's reflecting that, the problem of bias is going to be lingering in the foundational encodings and embeddings that are created, and then not counting with them, you lose the ability to know what's right and wrong and how you progress towards more balanced models. And Justo, the answer I was trying to unfold in there, we see many companies, for example, in the US, that they have big, large scale and lots of different states and territories, and they try to go and narrow down geographically as possible to try to go to specific communities, for example, in the calculation of particular promotions. Also, you can see that also in even deeper in decentralization, as we do in empathy with purchase history interactions, where all the AI is sourced from what's happening within your household, within the interactions that you are doing using TinyML and similar approaches. So everything happens, the calculations and the data sets happen within the sphere of privacy of a particular customer or household ID, right? It's a very interesting space that we publish these innovations in oi.empathy.co. And it's a bigger conversation, but I know we'll speak soon, Justo, again about this and other stuff, hopefully. More questions in there, Jordan?
Yeah, so we have a question internally. Is there any way to understand how a model has been trained so we can understand why it comes to particular conclusions?
How a model has been trained, so how it arrives at a particular conclusion. Well, that's the whole point of explainability, to be able to understand what are the data sets that led to that particular association of terms, right? So yes, there is a way of making those associations. Although to the person who asked this question, there is this element of randomness in the way the answers are provided, which is very important. And it's a very interesting, the temperature set is called, for example, in ChatGPT. So rather than saying this is the most likely term after the most likely term after the most likely term, to be able to know those terms that are associated to a particular model, as it happens, there is one of the terms that is presented that is less likely. all right? It's a less likely term. So in that moment, you cannot make an association because there is an element of randomness, which some people have been calling hallucinations in AI, in generative AI. More questions in there?
Yeah. So, Enrique, I think this is a question for you. How can we make sure that the data sets from things like Wiki Answers or otherwise are compliant and legal and lawful?
Well, that's the key question, right? Because without the proper database, you cannot build a model that is suitable for whatever you want to do. But I think that a legal expert will answer this better. So, Maria, what do you think about it?
Okay, good question. And it's like the big reply, right? If you start doing a due diligence to a data sets, what a lawyer could do in a first instance is just go into the website, check the license terms, check the copyright, check all the service terms when you are downloading it. But do you know the problem? When you go and try to read carefully all these terms, you just find like tons of disclaimers about the origin of the data. So this is like the main problem that we are facing. We really cannot trace from these open repositories data sets. There are some tools, of course, the market has realized that this is a need for lawyers and for companies. So they are kind of tools. For example, I don't know if you have listened about the privacy stress test, where you can go and with all the information about the privacy that you are using in your company, they can basically assess how your system is compliant with the privacy standards. I don't know if you have listened about it, but it's more like about they check like the global AI structure of your company. If you go just one by one, it's not that easy, because as I have said, the domain-specific models are very easy to trace. This is everything about traceability of the data. When you are using foundational models, this is not that easy. So probably we will need to use additional tools for that.
Thank you. I don't know if there are more questions, but I think we have to call it off, and we are happy to answer those questions in the LinkedIn chat afterwards. Is that okay, Jordan? Or do you have anything else that you think is pressing that we need to answer?
I actually have my own question. I am curious to know what you think, I don't know who wants to take this, but what you think the most important effect of explainability is.
Well, what do you think is the most important effect? What is the feeling you can elicit in somebody who feels at ease and understands why they see what they see? You know, I think it's a matter of trust, right? Trust is the coin. If there is no trust, there is nothing. If there is no trust, there is no value. AI is not what I think of it, it's what people feel of it, and people need to feel trust, you know. And so explainability is the key to succeeding in evoking trust, right? And trust is everything. If people don't trust AI is not gonna permeate in with the ambitions that it has. So this is how, and this is why it's so important to long for explainability. It's not a thing that we're going to grab, objectively achieve, boom, we did it, climax. It's something we got to keep on working on, longing for it across all these different and equally valid perspectives. But thank you for that, Jordan. Guys, thank you so much. Have a most beautiful Friday, an incredible weekend. Let's play some music, Jaime, please, while we say goodbye to everybody. Thank you so much, guys.
And remember that this is our last session before summer break. So we'll see you back here in September, everyone.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.